Welcome to the Live Full, Work Fun podcast. This is the show to encourage you to live your life to the fullest and do fun work that fuels your lifestyle. Hi, I'm your host, Gayla Scrivener. Every week, you'll be introduced to amazing guests, useful resources, and inspirational stories. You'll discover opportunities and perspectives to shape your version of living full and working fun. Hi there and welcome. I'm Gayla Scrivener. This season, we're exploring the theme, Don't Let the Start Stop You. It's a powerful reminder that while beginnings can be daunting, they're also a gateway to growth, success, and happiness. That's why today I've asked Jim Adams to return to the show for a conversation. Jim grew his brick-and-mortar business, American Landscape Structures, from $1 million in sales to $5 million in sales during the pandemic of all times, all while winning back his time and freedom as an entrepreneur. Jim believes that success as a business owner isn't about making more sales or hiring more people. It's about understanding your natural tendencies, inclinations, fears, and behaviors that affect your decision-making. As a consultant, Jim has helped hundreds of small and family-owned businesses around the U.S. and Canada transform their businesses that they've created to one that they truly enjoy to own. Welcome, Jim. I am so glad to have you back.
Yeah, it's great to see you again, Gayla. It's been a while.
It sure has. Through the pandemic, you strove to win back your freedom as an entrepreneur. What strategies did you use to make your work more enjoyable and your life more fulfilling?
Yeah, so to me, it comes down to three basic things. You know, we get our business up off the ground, right? And it's just very demanding. There's a tendency that we end up wearing all the hats. Cash can run short. There's just a lot of challenges that we're facing, overwhelm, just endless demands on our time. Yeah, I've been successful myself, and then also, leading some of my clients to improve their lives. I mean, I've worked with literally dozens of coaches and consultants and have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars. And very few of them, A, get you even a one-on-one return, and B, understand a P&L. The one thing that differentiates me from other people out there in the space is that not only am I going to understand your P&L? I mean, obviously money is a big part of growing a business and getting your time back, but also you're going to understand your P&L and your balance sheet and your KPIs and metrics and have those work for you so you can see where you're going. That's one of the main things. Probably the second thing is having a big problem strategy, a focus strategy. Not everybody's heard of them. In our space, Mike McAllis is a pretty big author. Stealing a quote from him, business owners' biggest problem is they have no idea what their biggest problem is. So when you fix that, they actually teach this in management school now. It's a program called Theory of Constraints, authored by Ellie Goldratt. But I've learned how to apply that on a very practical level, helping people focus their resources in the appropriate area. It really cuts down a lot on the firefighting and the scramble and the overwhelm. And then lastly is the inside job. So for years, especially when I was going out on my own as a consultant and a coach, I used to think that the reason why the failure rate was so high was because of people needing more knowledge and more skills and more strategies and things like that. And while that's not untrue, I don't care what accelerator course, whose name on it, Todd Herman, Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, it's really the inside game that helps people scale.
When you say inside game, what do you mean?
So it's really, what is it about you that's getting in your own way? Like this whole thing about personality tests have almost gotten toxic, in the sense that this is who and what I am. This is my identity. And the fact is that we can change those things. And so it's, who do you need to become to be more productive? And who do you need to become? Who do you want to become so that you can attract those really great people, those consultants, those coaches, those employees, the customers that are going to pay their way and then some. The people out there that really want to make a contribution, that really want a great job, they don't really want to work very long for a grumpy, overwhelmed business owner that is yelling and screaming and short-tempered and all that. I've been all of that and more. Just ask my wife. Yeah, I would say I'm not saying like don't join some of these groups I've been a part of, Scalable, Todd Herman's Accelerator 90-day program. I'm not saying don't do those things. Just be aware that the usefulness of all that may be somewhat limited and that you want to put an equal amount of energy and attention into who you want to be as a person, as a leader that can really pull this thing off. Because to me, that's the biggest number one reason why businesses don't scale. In most cases, if they don't scale, they usually fail. Like you can keep going, being a solopreneur, being small, you can actually keep that going. What's really expensive is if you try to scale and you try to grow, but you're not who you need to be. It's there. Believe me, I've experienced firsthand how really expensive that is when you try to go out and increase your sales team and double your business again. You know, I doubled my business twice from 1 to 2.5 to 5 over 3 years. And when you get above 5, it's a whole, I mean, obviously the business you're in affects what those levels are. But when you get to 5 and above, that is an entirely new ball game. Just entirely different.
With scaling or even growth, it starts within us. I mean, we can get skills of understanding certain things or gaining more skills to provide more services or whatever, the technical stuff. But really, you're saying that true scalability happens within us first?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think thanks to my many clients when I was a consultant as an employee in the company that I worked for, I mean, I would say in terms of knowledge and skills, and I know how to sell, I understand operational controls, I understand theory of constraints. All that knowledge and skill was not enough to keep me from getting into trouble, especially when you get up to that, wherever that level is, that threshold is going to be different for everybody. But there is a threshold there where who you have to be collectively. So it could be you. And if you have like a really, really strong partner or number two, then that can help you go. Like me personally, being a visionary, being a gunslinger and not having that real integrator, I'm borrowing from the book Rocket Fuel, not having that real integrator on my team, either as an employee or as a contractor, has cost me personally millions of dollars and many a sleepless night by trying to grow beyond my personal ability. I'm even actually looking right now, I'm looking for that integrator person to fill that role. I'm actually interviewing multiple people right now. I'm not giving up. You know, I hit some challenges last year. Last year was a tough year, but I'm not giving up on the goal of scaling what American landscape structures can be.
You mentioned at the very first that as an entrepreneur, you start out and you wear all the hats and then you get overwhelmed and you stretch yourself so thin. I can imagine that you are going through that. I think that there's peaks and valleys in our entrepreneurial journey that we get to that. We incrementally grow. But during your overwhelmment, we start a business because we want freedom. But sometimes we get into this as like, we are slaves to our company. And how do I gain that freedom back? What was one thing that you did that you gained your freedom back?
Okay, so I understand like this is not going to apply to everybody. I mean, I worked with a pretty, he's a friend of ours. That's not a mob term. He's a friend of ours. Dr. Eugene Choi. So I invested a lot of time and a lot of money working with a high level coach. And so one of the things I did is I went really deep with my identity. So one of the things that's happening, one of the stressors after we've been in business for a while, it becomes part of our identity. And so because it's literally part of who we are, if that gets threatened, then we start getting into fight, flight, freeze. We start reacting. And we're reactive. To be that person that's going to be able to scale that business, you've got to move yourself out of that reactivity mode. And I just lived there my whole life. And then part of our culture is we're in that reactive mode by design. The whole bro culture, the grind, the work ethic, like work ethic is number one. And it's not. I mean, obviously, it's a given that you have to put in the time, right? You can't just twiddle your thumbs or be mentally lazy. And that's another thing. It's like putting in the time. A lot of people, they can put in a lot of time, but they're really mentally lazy. And what I mean by that is they're busy, but they're not doing the more challenging things that's going to move them forward. They're procrastinating. And I'm saying from personal experience. But for me to be able to evolve, I had to get looser with this identity that like, I'm just effing Jim Adams. I'm not a race car driver, a business owner, all that stuff. That is not who I am. And to really learn how to live that way. It sounds a little airy fairy. And I mean, actually, I won't go into it, but like there's actually all kinds of brain science and medical studies that backs this up now. What causes burnout? Another thing that causes burnout, they found there's articles in the Harvard Business Review is loneliness.
Really? I
And
hadn't seen
so,
that.
yeah, so that's a big thing that I experienced is that I was so all in, so passionate about my business that I let my personal and professional networks go. When you and I were in the same mastermind, I started being more intentional about that and also increasing the quality of the people that I spent time with as well. And that's just a constant thing. Like we live in a lonely world where we can be in a room full of people and it's just all very surface level, superficial. It's not for everybody, I understand, but I want to have a big, amazing life. I'm never going to be content. I want to be near the limit. You know, people that end up working with me, they're kind of crazy. They're kind of gunslingers. They would rather fly too close to the sun and get burned once in a while than stay in the matrix in their nice, warm, cozy cocoon of goo. You know, most people would rather just stay there. It's very uncomfortable to move out of that and disconnect from all that.
I think that what you had just said was very insightful and that was very helpful because getting an outside perspective or learning from someone else so that you can understand yourself better, you're getting out of your own way so that you can move forward. So I love that. You know, going with the don't let the start stop you theme. Can you share a moment that you almost gave up on your goals, but what motivated you to keep going?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest thing that just aggravates the heck out of me is that I don't really have that like right hand administrator that's right here. Like interesting, like one of the things that irritates me more than anything is the frickin' mail.
I
Okay.
get you.
Because now
Yes.
I don't have that many employees and then I'm still virtual. So all the stuff is coming to the house. And so I'm getting all this stuff from the government and everything has to be touched. Now I have a better system. I have someone that scans it and sends it to my assistant. And then if it needs to get to me, it gets to me. But when you don't have any help, you're going through that spell where you don't really have the support that you need. You've got a gap there. That's the challenging things that really, really get to me. And frankly, if I'm thinking I'm going to give up, it's just a mood. Like it's not anything. I don't get that far. I mean, you know, racing is the same way. You know, out at the racetrack, there's days that I don't want, and everybody has this. I mean, when I talk about this, everybody has the same idea. There's just days at the racetrack when things aren't going right. I've had multiple practice days where I just couldn't get my car to work. This one car that I don't have anymore, it was just fighting with me for like a year. And I was like, I just don't need to do this anymore. It's just not worth it. And so it's usually just, you know, a bad day or a mood. It's not anything that I'm like seriously considering.
Well, let's dive into that just a little bit. You have your consulting business, what, 77 Performance. You have your structures business, but you're really into racing. Is that part of a profession? Is that a hobby? I see you all the time on social and I love it seeing how happy you are around a racetrack. Tell us a little bit more about that.
It's kind of like a joke in racing. Like they say the fastest way to be a millionaire in racing is to start out as a billionaire. It's not really terribly realistic that it could be, you know, cash flow positive. It's possible though. I love it. And with the connections I have in the personal brand space and the business owner space, it's possible 2 or 3 years from now, I could be a part of a race team. But for right now, it's a hobby. The other thing is I've got the Get on Track podcast. That's in its fairly early stages. And
Nice.
so, you know, at some point that will monetize. And then one of the things that I am passionate about, whether I make any money at it or not, is just elevating the sport. Like to me, it may sound silly to some people, but the fact that there's anybody that has never been in a high performance car on one of these racetracks is just like a wrong I feel like I want to right. Like it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like something that I'm emotional about. Like everybody needs to at least one time. I realize like it's not for everybody as a hobby to be, you know, living with your ass on fire all the time. But yeah, I just think everybody should get out there at least once. And then the other thing is like, if you know some people that are out there and you're watching on TV or YouTube or whatever, it makes it way, way more fun. And so that's the other thing is to get more viewership. Honestly, when you don't know anybody that's out there, it's kind of like watching paint dry. It's multi-class racing. So there's more than in a lot of cases, there's more than one driver. So like who's driving, which, who's leading. It's not like NASCAR where there's a big pack and you're basically the camera's focused on the top five, right? It's not like that. It's kind of chaotic. So I think what I really love about it is like being 63 years old and then being also able to have a physical pursuit. And I guarantee you, like, I am never going to enjoy golf. I will put up with it. As a guy, like, if you want to be able to get any kind of guy time, I mean, you either have to go hunting or fishing or golfing, or you're going to be, so I'll golf to hang out, but I'm not out there because I like it. It's just too slow.
What I love is that I can imagine there was a time in your business that you were so overwhelmed. You did the work on self-discovery so that you can regain your freedom to incorporate racing in your life.
Yeah, it's been super fun in all the areas. I'm enjoying American Landscape Structures, working with my team more than I ever have before. I'm basically right now using it as a laboratory. It's my primary focus. So I can get it like really situated, properly scaled. It still is not properly scaled. Like I still have work to do in that area. It's probably going to take 2 more years. So I'm basically using American Landscape Structures as a laboratory to really build out this new sales, new communication, new leadership model. And that's like another conversation for a whole other day. That's been a more recent development. And again, going back to the beginning, that's back to the inner game of why we do what we do. Sometimes my personality is a blessing and a curse sometimes. I was in Grand Rapids, Michigan this last week, and this guy was like a magician and a speaker, and the magic trick was cool. But one of the points that he really made that was really cool is he said there's wow people and there's how people. So the wow people are kind of more the visionaries. And then so my challenge is that I've got to force myself to be patient enough to deal with the details. Like I can't just let the details go just because I'm a visionary. And then how people need to be careful that they're not like just constantly bursting the bubble of the wow person, right? Like, and so that's what I'm looking for right now is just that really upbeat, positive, kick-ass how person that can come alongside me and help me get this thing. Like I'm not going to do this myself. It's going to take somebody that's not on my team right now. The life of a founder, a business owner is always going to be full of challenges. But the sad fact is that 80% of us do go out of business. It's really not necessary. Like that's probably one thing that I'm really passionate about is, before I get to the other side of the dirt, I would love to see for me and a few friends to figure out how to move the needle on this failure rate and how to make owning a business much more enjoyable for a lot more people.
I love that. You help small and family-owned businesses grow, and you might have touched on this already, but with all the books and accelerator courses and resources available, truly, what's the real reason why there's such a struggle to grow and make a business that's enjoyable?
Yeah, so basically it just takes completely different kinds of people to get a business up off the ground. Getting a business up off the ground is a major, major victory. Like not very many people get that privilege. It's really an amazing thing. And so I would probably say like one of the most amazing breakthroughs and also the worst curse, Michael Gerber, The E-Myth, that book was written in the 80s. So I didn't make up the phrase, you need to work more on your business and less in your business. I mean, I've gotten so passionate about this. When I hear that on a podcast or in a mastermind meeting, or you need to work more on your business, you need to work, I want to punch somebody in the face because these founders, like what do us founders think about rules, right? Now you're more of an administrative type founder, right? You're in that bucket. Like that's your zone of genius. You love the details, right, Gayla? And so I'm not saying that this is everybody, but like you love working on your business, right? Like that's what you do for your clients is you help them with those details. You help them with that integrator function, right? We hate that stuff and we're bad at it. You need to work in your business. Why? Because you're good at it. Why? Because you love it. Don't go trying to create this thing. Don't go trying to scale a business just because everybody says it's a good thing. Don't try to create this new thing You can take that, you can do the sales, you can work in the shop, you can do what you want to do, and you can make that work. Don't try to be somebody else. And then if you want to do that, find some people that have been there, done that, got the t-shirt, that are gonna help you get there. And that whatever you invest in your coach or your consultant, you're going to get multiple times back. Like I said, that's been one of my biggest challenges in this personal brand space. I can't tell you how many things I've listened to about how to charge more money and how to make more money and all that stuff. But I don't really hear a lot of people talking about, like, how do you help your clients get 2, 3, 4, 5 times their money back on that?
Right.
It's usually the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the few clients, I don't work with very many clients. Why? Because when I work with somebody, I'm kind of all in. I don't really have the ability to like dole out the cookies and work with somebody, 2-3 hours a week. I just really honestly don't have that in me. If you talk to the people that have spent money with me, this is like my little sales pitch. I would say go to jimadams.com. You didn't ask me this shit, but go to jimadams.com. And if you'll watch the testimonial by Travis Kuykendall, it's the third one on the page, it will inspire you. I'm not saying hire me, but it will inspire you. There are people out there that you can hire and they'll get you 2, 3, 4, 10 times back your money. 90% of them won't. Honestly, they won't. And again, that's a whole other subject for a whole other day. But I'm super grateful for the coaches that I've hired, for the relationships I've found in masterminds, in other rooms like that. That's been a big part of my growth, is getting around more people that have big ideas and big goals, and kind of getting, there's this saying in the Bible called, profit in your hometown. I think we all have to live with that in a certain way. There's just people in our life that we just need to kind of shake off and move away from, and go around people that, there's so many people out there that they just want to have a great life. Like, that's what they want. And they're not settling. They're never going to settle. They're never going to be satisfied. They're never going to be content. There's always going to be that vibration of discontent there, that there's more. And that's not a bad thing. It can be a bad thing, but it's not a bad thing.
You had said a few terms, gunslinger, and you have 3 other terms of the types of business owners there are out there. Do you mind explaining those just slightly?
Yeah, sure. I mean, basically the overall subject of personalities is something that I've shifted on. Now, I do think it's really important to understand. I don't think it's just the visionary and the integrator. I think there's a third one in there, the mechanic. So the 3 types of business owners that I refer to is the gunslinger, which that's me. And people have mixes of these. It's not like all or nothing. I'm part gunslinger and part mechanic. Why? Because what I know how to do is sell. That's my operational thing that I do, is sell. That's the thing that I know how to do, is sell. So I'm part gunslinger and part mechanic. And so are most of the people that I work with. You are probably part mechanic and then part goalie. You're going to be a bit more conservative than I'm going to be. Now, granted, if you know Gayla, like, she's out there with her husband riding around on bikes and living in tents and things like that. So you're also an adventurous sort, but it's really important to know yourself, what your blind spots are. And then, because that's going to tell you who you need to align with. A big part of your personality is your past. We have to find out, like, what's holding us back, what's getting in our way. And a lot of the time that's the past. And so, for example, I used to be conflicted about, like, am I an introvert or an extrovert? Because it just seems like I'm just moody. And what I realized is that basically I'm extroverted with anxiety.
I like that term.
And so when I'm in the zone, I was at a wedding. It was like 300 people at this wedding. I enjoyed myself. Like, when I'm in the zone, I like, like right now, I'm kind of fired up. I'm energetic. When I'm in the zone, I love a good conversation. I'm not so patient with small talk, but I love a good conversation. And I'm fine being around noise and a bunch of people. But if I'm in a mood, I tend to isolate, or I prefer groups of people, because I'm still, like, I'm actually right in the middle right now today of doing the work on my PTSD, my childhood PTSD. I'm in the middle of it. And so I'm still kind of moody. And so don't think that because your personality test, you took this personality test, it says you're super impatient. Well, guess what? You're going to get taxed for that. Like, you've got to work on that. You want to heal some, because why am I so impatient? I'm impatient because I'm on edge. I'm impatient because my amygdala is lit up. I'm in fight, flight, freeze, and I'm in fight mode. And so I can calm myself down, and I can slow down, and I can take deep breaths, and I can go, do a 10-minute meditation, or just have a decent conversation with a friend to get myself kind of more in the zone. One thing I got into recently is if you look at the top sport franchises in history, 90 Chicago Bulls were arguably, the most successful franchise. And then Phil Jackson went on to coach the Lakers to another 3 rings. So he's got a book out called 11 Rings. So if you look into that, like the basic ideas, it's not all about the X's and O's, right? You need to have knowledge. You need to have skills. There's no question about that. But at the same time, what are you doing to be present, to be with who you're with, to bring energy to the table, to the other person that you're with, to be fully present versus being scattered all over the place and multitasking and doing 18 things at once and being grumpy and all that. Yeah, I mean, those great people that you're saying that you can't find, they don't want to work for that guy. They didn't want to work for that gym, right? Things are easier now because I have like ride or die team members that would, they would take a bullet for me and I would take a bullet for them. And that is where it's at.
What advice would you give to someone who at this moment is hesitating to take their first step? Do you have any advice for them on not letting the start stop them?
There's so much in our culture. There's so much in the people around you that is just basically anti-dream. If you've got a dream, believe me, you get to the other side. The dream of owning a business is worth it. Those tough times, the dream of owning a business is worth it. And whatever your childhood dream was, maybe you can't be an astronaut or maybe you can't be a doctor or something like that at this point in your life. Okay. But, when we were kids, we all had lots of dreams. I had no idea that I'd ever be able to be a race car driver. Okay. And then one thing led to another. Honestly, it just kind of came to me. I was not going after it. It wasn't like I said, oh, I have a dream of being a race car driver. I'm going to be a race car driver. But it was something that I thought about that when I was a kid, and it kind of found me, honestly. So yeah, I would just say go after it and pay attention to what you're listening to. And it starts with you. My self-talk is still not anywhere near where I want it to be. And so like, don't be your own worst enemy. But then you also have those energy vampires in your life. There's negative how people in your life that are like, well, how are you going to do that? Or you can't do that. Or who do you think you are? That's a big one. I love hearing that now. And I felt that for a really long time, that like there was something wrong with me because I'd be talking about this big stuff and people be looking at me like, they wouldn't say it, but they'd be like, yeah, you're never going to do that, and here I am. So.
Oh, I love that, Jim. That's great advice. How do we stay in contact with you?
Yeah, there's 2 really easy ways. One is just go to jimadams.com. There's a couple ways there. Just sign up for my email list. You can book a 30-minute call there with me. That'd be another thing I'd say is just find a friend, find a mentor. I give a ton of value away for free. Like, the cash register doesn't need to ring with every person I meet. A lot of people were put in my life just so that I could even just share with them even a moment of my wisdom, of my energy, whatever. And then the other thing is the Get on Track podcast. It's really fun. The people that are on there excited about what they're doing. It's not all race car drivers. I've had a lot of, like I had Sean Osborne, not that you would know these names, but just friends of mine that they are in the business of leading leaders. And there's also race car drivers on there. That's really fun to listen to them. Just share about their passion. So.
Well, I am so looking forward to, listening to your podcast. All of these links will be down in the show notes. Jim, thank you so much for being with me today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed spending time with you today and you being so curious. Like a lot of business owners, I love to talk. I've just always loved to talk about my business. And so that's one of the cool things that I'm sure, when somebody reaches out to you or somebody reaches out to me, you're going to get to talk about your business with somebody that knows what the hell you're talking about and appreciates it. So
this is my favorite part of the day, is doing podcast interviews and speaking with and connecting with wonderful people just like you, Jim. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Gayla. Appreciate it.